Hey, everybody. Dave asked me if I would share with you a little bit about this one particular character that I have been playing for, I realized it's 19 years. And sort of the evolution of that character. And I think, even as we're talking about like this whole idea of like curiosity and discovering things and being brave and putting yourself into positions where you don't necessarily know what you're doing and you just go for it anyway. That's kind of how Little Red emerged. I found myself at Touchstone and I found myself as an ensemble member, and it was 2001. And I had seen Follies prior to that because I'd been living here for 4 years, and I had been a community guest in Follies, but I had never been an ensemble member, part of the creative process of creating it. And that year, Follies was directed by Jenny Gilrain. And at that point, the ensemble was made up of Bill George and Jenny Gilrain and Mark McKenna and Cora Hook, and then me. And Bill George has an MFA in mime and movement, and Cora and Jenny and Mark had all very recently finished getting trained by Jacques Lecoq himself in Paris in the 3-year clowning college that he had there. And then there was me. I have a BA in theater, no real training whatsoever, just a lot of enthusiasm and joy found in this art form. And so there I was, and Jenny, I remember one rehearsal, Jenny said, okay, everybody, and we had 4 apprentices who had all just finished. Some of them had finished their MFAs, and I mean, they were, I was feeling insignificant even with our apprentices. And Jenny said, okay, everybody, you're gonna go over to the costume shop and you're gonna come back with a clown. Go find a costume, go find your clown. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And so I just said, what do you mean? She said, well, just find a costume that speaks to you. So I went and started rummaging through, and then I found this dress, this clearly vintage, probably 1978. I don't know if it was a prom gown or what it was. It was long, it had the high neck and the cutaway shoulders and had the little bolero jacket, and it was red and it had white polka dots. And I don't know, I just liked it. So I grabbed it. And so I came back in and I put that dress on, and then Jenny said, okay, just start looking at yourself in the mirror and see what happens. And so I'm standing looking at the mirror and I'm watching everybody else as they're like experimenting with who their clown is. And I'm feeling more and more self-conscious and insecure. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden Jenny said, there she is. And I was like, there's who? And so that's kind of, Little Red started because I was game and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was willing to try. And I discovered that I love clown. I discovered that I think I am probably inherently a clown, even though I never knew it. And I found a wonderful quote I just want to share with you guys for a minute. This was written in an article back in 2016. Somebody is describing Jacques Lecoq and one of his very famous 7 levels of tension and all this stuff. But anyway, in this description of what clown is, I thought this was great. I did not know this when I started. This is what I learned at Touchstone. Clowning isn't something we need to learn so much as something we become aware of in ourselves. Anytime that we are curious, playful, or creative, we are in clown mode. When we are in a state of wonder or awe, surprise, or amazement, we are in clown. Whenever we have hunches, act on impulse, or digress, we are in clown. Whenever we have strong emotions, we are in clown. The clown lives in the place of laughing and crying at the same time. The art of clowning involves much more than the slapstick and oversized shoes of the traditional circus clown. The character of the fool is the essential ingredient of human society, a universal archetype found in some form in all cultures and in all times. The clown is the pure Atimus, the eternal child in all of us, the innocent who sees things as they really are and not as convention decrees, who can be counted on to tell us in the loudest possible voice that the emperor's not wearing any clothes. It is the part of us that has never grown up, that lives in the heart and in the moment, with no past to regret and future to dread, the part that only wants to play, completely free of responsibility, and yet is willing and able to save the world if necessary. The clown takes everything literally and personally, questioning everything under the sun except itself, blithely flaunting the egg on its face and the heart on its sleeve. With the best of intentions and no thought of failure, it leaps naively into danger, getting knocked down over and over, but never failing to get up and try again. It is the embodiment of hope in the face of hopelessness and possibility in the face of the impossible. It blissfully ignores the obvious and somehow convinces us of the wisdom of folly. And if, as I suspect, we are here to bear witness to the universe, the clown aspect of ourselves provides the best color commentary. Clowning is about the freedom that comes from a state of total, unconditional acceptance of our most authentic selves, warts and all. It offers us respite from our self-doubts and fears and opens the door to joy. And the best part is we are all already our clowns. They are here inside us, waiting for us to recognize them so that they can come out and play. And I loved that. And I thought, that is Little Red. And I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you a few pictures of her over the past 10 years. I have some still images of her from the past 10 years of Follies. And you will see that there is much of Little Red that has not changed at all from what you see, but then I will talk about what has absolutely changed about her. So if you will bear with me. Here we go. I'm going to try to do this. Present. A brief history of Little Red. So this is very much what Little Red looks like. She's generally a sad clown. There is much that makes her very sad. I like this because this book is the perfect Christmas. And it's a how-to book. And in Follies anyway, Little Red is very much about trying very much to wishing that Christmas would be perfect. And how can she make it perfect? And why isn't it perfect? Why isn't the world perfect? She's always wanting things, trying desperately to find ways to be happy. And most of the time, in true clown fashion, everything fails until the end. This was last year, and this is a very different kind of Little Red than the very first Little Red that ever showed up on stage, who was terrified of being in front of people and didn't have a clue what she was doing. I read that part to you. This is part of last year too. And that thought of, that idea of just no holds barred, you don't care what you look like, you go for it. Last year, Little Red was desperate to get taller. so that because she decided she really wanted to be one of the Rockettes in New York. And so she spent most of the show finding lots of different ways of trying to become taller. One year, the old guy disappeared. This is part of Bill's very iconic old guy cart. Little Red found his cart and then searches for old guy in that show. I had a good time. I had a good time playing Bill's ukulele and pretending to smoke his cigar. Little Red has occasionally had a whole lot of friends. Most of the time she's kind of alone on stage. And this was one of my more favorite years where it was very simple and she just wanted to dance and she wanted a dance partner and she ended up basically creating her own. But you can see that over all of these years, Little Red has had this red dress. It was long, I cut it short. She's always had the red nose. She's always had these socks and shoes. When I first started as Little Red, I had long hair, believe it or not. And I had a big red bow in my hair. But then when I cut my hair short, I started wearing the hat. And ever since then, Little Red has had the red hat on. And so like what she wears, how she kind of looks, it doesn't change other than a little extra pounds and more lines on my face. But I think what has really evolved with her is that over time, I now have a much better sense of what I'm doing. Or at least I like to think I have a better sense of what I'm doing. And part of that better sense of what I'm doing is that I accept the fact that none of us know what we're doing. And that I've come to realize that trying to be a clown is not how you're a clown. I think where I really discovered Little Red, well, the first year, the reason she's a silent clown, except for singing, which makes total sense in a clown world, is that very first year of Follies, like I said, it was 2001. And we started devising right after 9/11 happened. And trying to imagine creating a Christmas show right after 9/11 where nobody is feeling Christmassy or like being creative or anything. And Jenny was so brilliant, and she asked each of us actors if there was something we had always longed to do on stage and that we'd never had the chance to. And she found a way to make sure that each of us had a chance in that year's Follies to do the one thing we had always longed to do. And that was part of, I think, what helped give us the energy to move forward. And the thing I said I had always wanted to do on stage and never had was to sing a cappella, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And so we worked out this whole scenario where my Little Red Clown was the sort of very put upon assistant to one of our MFA's clowns, which was this sort of very Germanic chanteuse singer who treated Little Red terribly. I still remember she was singing Silent Night in German, Stille Nacht, and she kept spitting, and Little Red had this tiny little red goblet that she had to go catch all the spit in, which is a very Little Red, it's a very clown thing, right? And then the final time you see this chanteuse is she's going to sing a song. She's going to sing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. But something has happened and she storms off stage in a rage, and she says to Little Red, "Fine, you entertain the audience." And Little Red is standing there and the curtain closes behind her. And so she's stuck out in front of the audience with nowhere to go. And she's been silent the whole time. And I was a silent clown because I didn't know what to say. You know, everybody else's clowns talked a lot and I was just, I don't know what to say. So being silent worked for me. And so I sang "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." And I think it was one of those moments when somehow or other you have stumbled upon something without even trying that is just the right thing at just the right moment. And so hearing this very scared little voice start to sing this song about having a merry little Christmas that year was potent. And so ever since then, Little Red has been silent except for singing. I've discovered over the years that she can make sound effects. You know, if that's the only way to get something across is to help make a sound effect that works. But where I really discovered Little Red was a couple of years in, well, no, actually it was the very next summer, spring. It was Mayfair. Remember when we used to have Mayfair? Remember when Mayfair used to actually hire local artists to come and do stuff? And Touchstone got hired to come every day of Mayfair and to do basic street clowning. And so everybody else had their clown. Everybody else was professional clown, and then there was Mary. And so I just put Little Red on and I left the tent and I went wandering the fairgrounds. And I discovered Little Red through my interactions with people. I discovered Little Red because children who are normally really scared of clowns, for some reason, they recognized the child in Little Red. They recognized a fellow child. And children have never been scared of her ever. I found people felt very sorry for her. People wanted to give me food. People wanted to give me money. Children wanted me to hug me. They wanted to dance with me. And I think it was just because I didn't go out with any sort of, go out with any preconceived idea of what I was going to do. It was just go out and see what's there and respond to it in the persona of this child that I realized is me at probably about 7, 8 years old. And that's when I discovered, it was like, oh, this is who Little Red is. This is Little Red who like desperately wants everyone to be happy. And it makes her sad when people aren't happy. And so she'll do like, what can she do to make people happy? Little Red who thinks that everything is going to be this great adventure and then is really heartbroken when it's not. Little Red who is sure that like Little Red who's like the clown, very literal minded, right? So here's a jar. I found a jar at Christmas tree shops. It said joy on it. So I bought that. So Little Red had something to react to one year. Because it's like, oh, joy. This is I need this jar because then I'll have joy. One year it was, I found products at some place that was like, this skin cream was called happiness. And this thing was called something, and it's just like absurd stuff, but it's like, okay, great. In Little Red's world, I need to buy that and put it on my face and then I'll be happy. And And over the years, some of what she's done has gotten more and more outrageous. But what's been kind of neat was like that year with the hat. You know, it was just a hat sitting on stage and me going out and playing with it. And this year it was great to, with Follies not being confined to a stage. It meant that Little Red got to go out and just interact with people again. And, you know, I had a little bit of an idea, like, I'm gonna see if this idea has any legs on it. Little Red, you'll see in Follies if you tune in, Little Red wants to get in on the Etsy movement, because she's decided that, well, she wants some hot chocolate, and the only way she can pay for it is she has to start her own Etsy business, because of course in the clown world that makes complete sense. And so she designs ornaments and tries to sell them on Main Street, where all the other artisans have their shop things up. Her ornaments are terrible. They unfortunately look a lot like the coronavirus. Oops. And yeah, and so we then, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. We had a camera crew and me and these ugly, ugly coronavirus ornaments. And I went out and played. And so I think for me, the confidence to know that I could do that I could just go out, I could have a concept, say, I want to see what happens if, and go out and then see what happens if, and feel confident that there would be enough in that would be worth recording, is probably the biggest change in Little Red in the last 19 years, is accepting that I don't have to know what I'm doing. So that's Little Red.
That was stupendous. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
Let's unpack it a little bit. Let you know, unmute yourself and say something if you want. Do you feel like it's something you can put on? You know, I put a cloak on, your invisibility cloak that is comfortable now, apparently. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I was saying, I actually went out on Thursday and Friday. Little Red did a little Christmas caroling at a few people's homes, and I made some ornaments. I have some remnants of her material, and so I made a few ornaments that included some of her material. And when I was parking outside of homes, I realized that if they looked out the window and saw me get out of the car, it couldn't be Mary walking up to their house. It had to be Little Red walking up to their house. And so I got out of the car and I skipped up to their house and I waved at people coming down the street, and, you know, and I did the whole thing as Little Red. And I said to Ben, my husband, Ben, when I got home, I said, you know, it's really nice to just live in her head. So yeah, it is an invisibility thing, but part of me wishes that we could just do it without needing to wear the costume.
That's what was interesting to me, Mary. It's just a fascinating, like contextually, because I don't relate to that kind of creating a character type of thing. I just don't understand like how to do that. The idea of clowning seems so foreign to me, to put on a character and then do it, because I've spent so much of my life trying to be authentically me, and find that, you know, where that person is, and just becoming, always becoming, transforming. And one of the questions that came up for me when you were talking was, one was you always talk about her in the third person. Now, a couple times you did say me, but the idea of a third person, and then I said, wow, how do you do a third person? It's like somebody calling their guitar a he or a she. Like, I don't get that. And then it was like, are there times when you access Little Red yourself, when you're in your life, not on stage, not in a performance? And you just talked about this caroling thing and that you access. Now that was sort of specific for that, I suppose, but I wondered if you could just talk about, sort of the lines that blur between the you that is you, sort of, and her.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Jackie, because I think I put a costume on to play Little Red, but the fact is Little Red really is me. I mean, the clown really is the thing about clown that I like and when I talk about clown, I'm talking about it in that sort of Lecoq European idea of the clown, the fool, the Charlie Chaplin kind of clown, right? Which is that the clown is the innocent within you that doesn't have any of the walls that we've built up over our lifetimes around us. It's not wearing, even though like the red nose is a mask, but in a way it allows us to unmask ourselves. I think like the red nose, people, if I behaved in public the way I would love to, which is as Little Red does, I would not get away with what I get away with when I've got the red nose on because of societal norms. And so Little Red kind of has given me the freedom to play in the wider world the way I really want to play, but in a way that a lot of times the wider world won't let me. But I think that I was playing with my grandson the other day. They actually came up, I got to see him, believe it or not. And, I run around and act like I'm a toddler with him. I'm not being Little Red, I'm just being me, but I'm allowing that part of me free. And I think that what the nose does and what the costume does is that it gives society permission to accept us being that way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very interesting.
I thought while you were talking, I was trying to think if I had an experience that I could compare that to, and it reminded me of times when I've done teaching, which I used to do at the community college. They, as part of the artist in residence program for the children's center, I would go into the college classes for people training to be teachers, and often I'd go into a room and it might be 20 young women, because there really weren't many guys in the early childhood program. So here I am, this old guy, and I'm in this room with all these young women, and I would have to get them to sing or dance or do some kind of art project. And it was the same thing. I had this sort of this. I don't think I felt like I was in touch with some kind of core person, except that inside me there's something, like I'll take this risk. I'll sing a song with you, I'll clap hands, do a clapping thing with you, I'll try to dance with you. And if I was anywhere other than that classroom, I would have felt like a complete lunatic. And but it was interesting though to try to encourage them to get out of themselves, because they would sit there like bumps and they would not participate because they were not used to that idea of stepping outside of themselves to do that. And to try to get slick, if you're a teacher, you've got to try to get all these people to go with you. And so you got to take this risk and get outside of yourself and try to get them to come along and experience with you. And it was cool because all of a sudden they'd be with you.
Yeah.
And and imagine it's what, like performing, like when the audience is with you, and then you go, wow, look at this, they're with me, you know. It's gotta be, you know, it's a nice feeling. You feel like, wow, I broke through somehow. And anyway, that's kind of what your story brought to mind. But that's got to be, it's you put the nose on, and then all of a sudden you can be in contact with people in a new way.
Yeah. I took part in the HD program that Hilda Doolittle, and I was let's see, there was a final program which had myself, an astrologist, and one of the owners of Edge of the Woods. And they were talking about the stars, you know, because HD's father was an astronomer. No, he wasn't an astrologist. He was an astronomer at Lehigh. And then Edge of the Woods, the lady was talking about the wild plants that HD would have seen, you know, growing up in this area. So and I was at the end of the program, you know, and we had to leave at a certain time, and that was it. And they kept talking and talking and talking. And I had done a lot of research and had put together, you know, I had, in a very not sort of complicated way, but there was a complexity to what I wanted to present. And I found myself, I'm a Gemini, and occasionally the other twin takes over. And I was full clown twin, which, and watching myself, you know, do this. And the teacher came up to me afterwards and said, you know, she had heard me before and she knew that it would be fun. So I do this other times. So I haven't, you know, the subjects that I work with, I haven't quite, in order to write the kind of poetry that I write or inspire other people, I need to access the innocence. But so you're helping me understand the dynamic of what I'm working with and don't fully understand, which is how to, well, actually in the Wednesday sessions that I do joke a fair amount. And laughter is one of the keys to understanding that kind of poetry. So this is extremely helpful. I just, you know, just to say that, because it's helping me reflect on what I'm doing. And I have the issue that my family used ridicule as a way, and shaming as a way of discipline or as a way of vengeance. And so I have that, you know, I have that to work with. So anyway, I appreciate very much. Yeah.
Well, Marilyn, my family did much the same. And I think that the gift of the red nose is that you can say it's not you. You know, and that I think it's taken me a long time to recognize that, you know, Little Red's sadness is my sadness. Little Red's craziness is my craziness. Little Red's desperate desire to please everybody is my desperate desire to please everybody. You know, that the pleasure Little Red gets when she can make somebody else smile is my pleasure that I get, you know, but that giving yourself the permission to go there is, I think, part of what I discovered the clown gives me permission, because that you can't clown without that. You know, it's not clown if there's a filter, if you're second guessing everything you're doing, you know, and so that the freedom to just be a little crazy and not worry, because it's not you, it's her, is very helpful. At least it was very helpful for me. It has been very helpful for me. And I think as an artist, it has therefore freed me up in other parts of my life too. Because once I realized that I could claim that, and that people responded to it, and that there's no shame in following an impulse and just seeing what happens, and that there's no shame in being who it is that you are, that freed up a lot of other areas in my life, which was great.
Sue, would you like to respond to anything?
Yeah, I really thank you for this, Mary. I mean, I've seen Little Red probably around 2001 is about really when I first discovered Touchstone. So it definitely gives her a lot of depth that I hadn't given her. And I like her even more now. I'm trying to think of throughout the years scenes on sorry, it's nothing personal, it's my memory, but it really makes a lot of sense. And you talk, I mean, it's about being honest, it's about being authentic, and that's what it all boils down to, I suppose. And not being trained as an actor, I guess that's how actors are trained, to speak from the gut, and for Little Red, without filters. And that speaks to me. So I am really looking forward to seeing her on Friday on my screen.
Right. Mary, are you an introvert?
I am.
Me too.
Introvert. I'm an introvert with wild overcompensating skills. But yeah, I'm an introvert.
Well, that's kind of how I relate to it too, in that when I go on stage, I'm nervous. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But in a sense, I have control of the situation. And I trust my instincts that something will happen in an organic performance with what I do. But it's interesting in that it comes out of that self-doubt, that once you put on that cloak, once I get on stage, I go with it and I trust it. But it's interesting, people assume that I'm an extrovert, and it's exactly opposite of that.
Yeah, everybody thinks that I'm an extrovert, and no.
But it's a way of funneling it, of focusing it, and in that we can feel comfortable with our skills and take it from there.
Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating how Sue described it as like, or you described it as authentic, and then she described, or you described it as a way for you to like the nose is like a, you know, it's a mask, but it's a mask that allows you to be more sort of the character or that part of yourself, which is, you know, sort of an, you know, an anti-social, anti-meaning social norm kind of, you know, openness. And then Sue about, you know, talked about the authenticity of it. And then I talked about, I couldn't imagine getting into character because I'm always integrated into my authenticity. So it's almost like this tension of interpretation of what is authentic really between, you know, kind of what we were talking about, like, you know, how does authentic manifest, you know? I mean, I guess it manifests in different ways. I guess, you know, what is authentic to you, you know, in terms of sort of revealing yourself is different than perhaps what is authentic to me. You know, it's kind of just a little dialectic that happened inside of my head when I was trying to interpret what that meant for these, you know, the three of us talking about what seemed to be the same word, but perhaps it's an openness and the curiosity, the openness, you know, that open, maybe it's just open, maybe it's not authentic, maybe it's just open. I don't know, what do you think? You know, it's, because open seems like authentic would be something you're trying to do in a way, you know, but maybe not, you know, it's like open symbolizes this access to it, you know, true being or true, I don't know. I'm not sure that I have an answer. I'm just sort of swimming in the language and how it was all being expressed and seeming to be a little different.
Yeah.
Mark McKenna did an exercise with us a while ago, and he had us, it was clowning. We went through clowning exercises. And so you may have heard this before, Mary. He said to access the part of ourselves that was there before anyone said no. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there, and that I thought that was absolutely right.
Yeah. So it's like accessing the core of oneself before anyone said no. Yeah, going back. Takes a lot of, not work, but permission, courage. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what we as artists and teaching artists are, you know, it's part of our skill set, and that we can call it up when we have to. But also we can recognize that in other artists where we see the risk, and our appreciation for that is, you know, really, you know, provides access between people. I think that's kind of what our little group is good at, and one of the things that I really appreciate about these sessions.
Yeah,
I have a thought that this was when you were talking, Jackie. Do you go by Jackie? Yeah, you said the nose is a mask that allows you, and then I finished the sentence. It's a mask that allows you to be unmasked.
mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm thinking tonight.
Well, and I think, Dave, when you were talking about, you know, recognizing the risk, and that as teaching artists, I think part of it is recognizing the risk we're asking our students in our workshops. Like, we're asking them to take risks, and we're asking them to put themselves in a position where they may feel like they don't have a whole lot of control. They don't know what's going to happen. The what if, and the what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? You know, all of those what ifs. and that our ability, to me, our ability to show our own willingness to try and fail, to risk, um, allows students then to see that it's okay. And that, and I think our understanding of what a risk it is part of what helps us create sacred spaces in those workshops and in those classes for students to feel like it's a safe place to try something. Because I think all of us have come from places of trying and failing, and we know what it feels like. And so we know how to respect and honor the effort that's being made and the trust that's being put in us. I mean, to me, that's part of what always blows me away is I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to those, especially to the kids, the younger kids, that there's a lot of trust being put in me, in us, and that, you know, we're responsible for honoring that. And I figure the best way to honor it is by honoring the kids, by letting them see us, you know, respecting them enough to let them see the real us. Anyway.
I took a clown class from Avner the Eccentric, who makes an art of failing spectacularly. And what he said is it develops, and it was a wonderful way to put it. He says there's a dance going on. You fail miserably, and the audience reaches out to help you up. And then all of a sudden, you do something spectacular where you lead and you blow them away. And then you fail. And then what he said is there's a rhythm set up with this intentionality of failing and leading, failing and leading. You lead, I'll lead, you lead. And then all of a sudden you are doing a dance where both of you are at a level above where you weren't before. And so that's what I'd like to do with kids is, you know, I screw up, you know, and be silly and stuff, but that gives them an avenue and access to step up. So that's what clowning does, you know.
You know, it's funny, but you're saying that reminded me of when I was working with little kids. I started to sing songs wrong, you know, and it's what you're talking about. I mean, like old MacDonald had a farm and the cat went moo, you know, and then all of a sudden the kids go bananas, you know, and it's so great, you know, and they, oh, look at this, I got everybody all riled up, you know, and all I had to do was screw up, you know, and it's just so much more fun. I remember seeing Abner the Eccentric, and he I think he was trying to light a match or something, and he went on for about 10 minutes trying to light a match or a cigarette or something. I don't know. It was just a wreck, and it was delightful, you know. And it reminded me of, and this is sort of like getting back to the beginning, what everybody was talking about, like what it means to what it is like thinking like an artist. And part of thinking like an artist, I think, is it's just that, you know, this probably isn't going to work. So, like, if you have that in your mind to start with, you know, that's a great way to start. This is going to be a wreck. So let's go. Let's make a wreck, you know, and then maybe if we do it 10 times, we'll get something. But that's people aren't used to that. They think, man, I got to learn how to do this so I can do it right. And it's you can't do it right. You know, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but some days I'm pulling my hair out. But you know, one of my favorite teachers, he was a really well-known painter. You know, he said it's impossible. That was his whole, you know, his parting words were, "That's impossible. Nobody can do this."
Well, I'm going to wrap things up here. Thank you, Mary. Let's give Mary a big hand here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Thanks,
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking me, Dave. This has been fun.